Hello, I'm Staying Talked, and you may or may not know me from things. I'm here today with Spartan Dash. You could say hi.
Hi.
I know you from a little bit of other video related things, which will hopefully be released in the near future.
Yeah.
Um, Audio work for that's been crazy, but that's a different story. So I guess you can introduce yourself if you want to. Anything comes to mind.
Uh, my name is Spartan Dash. I make Object Explosion. I'm an animator for Inanimate Insanity, and I also make music stuff on the side.
Awesome. All right. So I think we can just jump right into it. And I guess we'll start with just overall animation because, as you already mentioned, you work on Inanimate Insanity. We're gonna go into that topic more later on into this. But overall animation, and from everybody I've talked to, it's always determined that yes, animation is difficult, and yes, it's a grueling process when determining what motivation you have for the given day of work and etc. Um,
Yeah.
but I think I guess just to start out, what keeps you motivated to animate and to be able to produce and allow you to work on other projects that, like monetary or not, but just being able to produce things in a timely manner to go about project work schedules.
Uh, hmm. I usually I'm a procrastinator, so I usually procrastinate a lot, but when I need to focus, I usually watch other shows and stuff and see how they're animated. And I'm like, oh, that looks cool. I want to try something like that in the thing I'm animating. And then it's that's usually what motivates me to get into that mindset to grind on work.
That's interesting, actually, just to see I guess it kind of turns leisure into motivation in that sense.
Yeah.
Inspiration is probably a better word for that. Um, but I think as a whole, because you talked about procrastination, I know that for some of these projects like II or even your own project like Object Explosion, whatever that may be, I'm assuming you set some form of deadline for yourselves.
I did. Yeah.
Uh, how does that generally work out? Is it always just kind of get it done as soon as possible over time, last minute? I'm assuming I think I know the answer, just because
Uh,
as a fellow procrastinator, it's usually the same answer.
I mean,
um,
yeah, usually some most I mean, I don't want to say most of the time, but a lot of the time it is doing stuff last minute. But with stuff for II, it's you're getting paid for that, and they're like, all right, you have a couple of weeks to do this. You better get going. And it's okay, and then I just kind of start, and then just kind of try and get it done as soon as possible. But sometimes it is a last minute thing. So
Absolutely, yeah. Um, so I think we can kind of branch off from there in a moment. But I think just in general with animation, I guess not an awful question would just be getting how you got into animation and what drives you to continue doing animation in the future.
and, object shows, really. That's what got me into animation. I saw BFDI and I was like 10 or 11, and I was I want to do something like that. So I went out and got Anime Studio, and I made a really bad show that never came out. And then I just I after that, I was I kind of gave up for a bit, and then I asked for Flash. My parents were like, okay, and then I got Flash, and I just kind of started learning from there.
Yeah. So I guess moving on from there, or not necessarily that, but branching off of that is your experiences working on Inanimate Insanity, which has obviously been, some worthwhile. This is again
Yeah.
a monetary thing. Um, I don't want to say has it dawned on you, but I know a lot of the people who are doing this Inanimate Insanity stuff, they're probably people mostly in high school and college. Has it dawned on you that animation as a whole, regardless of where you are in life, could be something pursuing just in general, given I guess your life circumstances?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm graduating community college later this summer, so
Oh, congrats.
I'm trying. Thank you. I'm trying to figure out like where I'm going from there, and animation is definitely something I'm interested in. There's like a few other things I'm thinking about too, but it's
Mhm.
like that is something that I've retained a lot of like I'm interested in that. I might want to go into that.
No, absolutely, yeah. And I think with Inanimate Insanity as a whole, because I'm speaking to more people, they kind of just like fell into it. If that's kind of like the best way to describe bumping into II. Um, with a few people I've talked to, in or out of interview, it just kind of happened. Like how did working on II happen apart from just submitting I'm assuming submitting a audition of some variety.
Yeah, I submitted an audition. I've auditioned, but like I worked. I've done a few auditions like over the years, but I never submitted them because I was like, all right, this doesn't look good, and I don't want to waste my time. And it's
No, that's fair.
like,
Yeah.
like last year, I was like, all right, I actually want to try now. So I tried, and I sent it into the email thing, and I was like, all right, I guess I'll just wait and see what happens. And then one day, I see like a Discord notification on my phone, friend request from Adam Katz, and I'm like, oh shit. And so I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Um, I think it's a lot for Inanimate Insanity and for BFB/Tpod. Really, all these major projects are things people are constantly dreaming about being able to work for or work on. What is, I guess, in a way, a tip you'd give, or just advice in general for people who are aspiring to do things that you've already accomplished now in the OSC?
Hmm. Uh, just keep like. That's a tricky one.
Sorry.
No, you're good. I guess just keep like, don't give up. Like, keep striving for what you want to do. Like, for example, with the II thing, I made a few auditions I wasn't proud of, and I did one, and I was like, all right, that looks good. So I submitted that one, and I got in. So it's just like, if you want to reach for that, then just like do it. Like, nobody's stopping you except for yourself, and just like go for it.
Yeah. So I think moving on from there, and I don't know how much you do this for other object shows or anything, either personal or not necessarily personal, but other projects you happen to help with, because we obviously know you do animation. Do you do much music composition and production for other OSC projects, or is that just more personal?
Uh, I did a couple. I've done a few, not like very often. It's very rare when I do like a song for someone else. But like, I've done a couple songs for OSO, and I've done a couple songs for Whoopdoo's old show, Battle for Palace Objects, and but that's really it. So
Mm. So I think going from there would be for music production as a whole and music composition. Has that just been more of a hobby that has slowly worked its way into things you work on or things you end up doing for, say, I guess Object Explosion would be a good example, if anything present music-wise ends up there, and how often, I guess.
absolutely. I've been making Sparta remixes and like YTPMVs for a long time now, like almost 10 years, and it's like I wanted to branch off, so I started making music like based off of what like the type of music I listen to, and it's like Tyler the Creator and Boards of Canada and all this stuff, and I was inspired by that, so I wanted to like kind of make my own like stuff like those people.
Totally. And how often do you think? Because as you mentioned, I believe you do use some of this for, I guess, Object Explosion or other personal related projects. I could be wrong. Implying that you do a lot of back and forth with putting music into the work that you do. How often do you end up seeing music influencing animation or vice versa in a given scene?
Uh, Quite a bit. I see quite a lot of like. I've certainly been inspired by music. There's all those people that say like, "Oh, you hear a song and you picture an animation in your head with your characters," and like, yeah, that's happened to me. I've pictured stuff like that, and it's like sometimes I've like committed to actually making that happen, and sometimes I haven't. But it's definitely music is definitely something that influences me a lot and like what I do.
And I think that could also branch off into a different direction, which is obviously people, as we literally just mentioned not even 2 seconds ago, on how music influences animation. Have you had experiences where an animation you're working on has influenced music you either proceeded to make for said animation or just as a own like totally separate thing, or is that just kind of more of a rarity in your
Uh,
I don't want to say your field, but like for
yeah.
you personally?
Um, I don't think that's actually ever happened. I was working on a reboot of my show, Object Explosion, which we'll probably get to later at some
Oh, we
point.
will. Oh,
But
we will.
I was working on like a draft of that basically, and there were a few, and like I was making like my own soundtrack for it, and I have a couple songs done, but uh, I didn't like base it off the animation. I guess based it like more off of like how I wanted the dialogue to like go through it, and because I wanted it to be like well timed and stuff. I didn't want it to be like overbearing or like so
No, totally, yeah. No, I understand. All right, so I think we're just about done there. Apart from, I mean, you've already talked about genres and things that have influenced you.
yeah.
Yeah. I guess how did you get into doing stuff like that? Because you said this was like 10 years ago where you're doing these kind of remixes.
Yeah. Uh, Same with like the animation. I just saw like Sparta remixes and stuff on YouTube, and I was like, "That's cool. I want to do that." And then I started, and I wasn't very good, but over time, you just keep going, and you get good at it. So,
So I think going from there, let's delve into Object Explosion. That's like the main, it's like the kicker here, I'd say.
uh, oh,
I mean, what do you want to talk about before I just delve into questions in regards to Object Explosion?
uh, nothing really. You can just go ahead.
So Object Explosion, as we've already mentioned, is experiencing a reboot. This is a project that's, I want to say, 4 years old at this point. 5, 4.
Almost 5 years. Yeah.
Wow. So I guess immediately, for inspirations of rebooting the series, I guess just kind of what drove you to that specifically was, did it just come down to the overall product not being where you wanted it to be, or like, I guess, conflicting decisions between what was being made and what you wanted from the output, or even something else I'm completely missing? But I guess what were like kind of the main reasons to start fresh with Object Explosion?
Well, like you said, I had a Google Doc with like a huge like lore thing written, and it was so like convoluted and confusing, and I didn't know how to like incorporate that into the show, and there was all these plot holes, and it was like, all right, this is too overwhelming. I got to do something about this. So I was like, I'm just gonna start fresh and try this over again. And I mean, there were some other things too, like personal stuff that happened that was like, I don't really want to do this anymore. I want to start over. But
Right.
that was basically one of the main parts of it. Was I couldn't really find out how to tell the story I wanted to tell without it being super confusing to understand and follow.
I guess for Object Explosion, back 5 years ago, was it just another one of those things similar to, I guess, music composition, production, and animation, where you saw all these people and you always see making these shows, and you kind of wanted to jump on that wagon?
Absolutely, yeah. I was like, back when I was like first making like the first episode of Object Explosion, I was really inspired by shows like Steven Universe and like all those like plot-driven shows, because I was like, there's not a lot of shows like that out there. I want to try something like that. Now there's a ton of them. There's One, and there's
Right.
Nightly Manor, and there's like a ton of them. But back then there wasn't like very many. So I was like, I want to try something like that. And obviously, like being one of the first shows in that field, I didn't really know what I was doing, and like I like didn't turn out super well, but I would say that I was inspired by a lot of other object shows, like while making it. That's definitely what inspired me to do it in the first place, was seeing all the other shows, because that was like, ever since I got into BFDI, I was like, I want to make an object show, and that was like really my first successful attempt at it.
Right. Totally. Um, I'm trying to think of the term. I don't know what I'm thinking of right now. In regards to, I guess not necessarily the irony, but about the conflicting ideas in regards to where you wanted object explosion to be. So I guess for the future, where do you plan on object explosion to be at? I guess well, not necessarily in terms of lore, if you don't want to reveal stuff like that, but like,
Yeah.
what do you immediately plan on changing that you didn't do that you did or did not do the first time with the original?
Well, first of all, I'm gonna try and stop being like as much as a perfectionist, because that was partly the reason why there's only like one episode a year, because I was like, it has to be perfect, because if it's not perfect, I'm gonna get comments saying it's bad, and then that's gonna demotivate me, and it's like, So it was like, I was like trying to make everything as like perfect as I could, and that definitely was like a factor as to why everything took so long. But that's definitely like something I want to fix going forward. I'm also simplifying the animation a bit. Back in the old one, it was like a fully animated show, but for this one, I'm thinking of either like doing animatic or like early BFB, like hand-drawn style. Either I
Really?
haven't like fully decided yet, but I wanna try like seeing if that speeds up like that process at all. And
Yeah, no, totally.
yeah.
Yeah. Guess that kind of explains that portion of it. So I guess as more minor things for the series, are we going to be seeing, I guess, changes in regards to characters and how they acted, new characters in general? Are we losing some specific characters or aspects that the original had?
Uh, Absolutely, yeah. There's gonna be a few characters in the old one that are gone because either I don't like them or nobody liked them watching it. But
Right.
and there's gonna be some new guys, and some of the old people are gonna have their personalities changed and stuff. There's one character in particular. I'm not gonna name names, but if you've seen the show, you know who they are. And I was gonna incorporate into lore that they had like a disorder, and
Oh,
I was I was like, at first going into that idea, I was like, I can do that. Sounds easy. But then like, as I kept going on, I was like, no, this is probably not a good idea. I probably shouldn't do this because
it's so hard to present something like
yeah,
that, I feel like,
I
regardless of what it's for.
yeah, and so as much as I like want to try representing something like that, I just don't think I'd be able to do it well. So
That's
I'm
totally
kind
fair.
of changing that in the new one.
Is there anything else in particular you want to talk about, I guess, just in regards to the OSC, or do you think that might sum up all the OSC related things?
Uh, that's really all I can think of. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess from there we can go into one of the more, I don't want to say interesting parts, one of the less, I guess, demanding parts of the interview, which is talking about hobbies and habits, because I think that's always a fun little thing to do. So what goes on? What hobbies? What habits? What are we doing? Which we could also find ways to link it into the OSC, because there's a couple interviews I've done where we found where somehow it's just kind of linked right back to the OSC of something that's like entirely unrelated.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That, like you said, the OSC, like making a show and like making content on YouTube has been a hobby of mine for like probably over 10 years now. I just started making money off of it recently, but
Right.
like it's been something I've been doing for a while now. It's that I would consider that like my main hobby, like video editing and making music and animations and all that stuff.
Do you know anything that you just, I guess, enjoy doing? That doesn't necessarily have relation to the OSC, but it's like kind of, I guess, interesting things that you find.
Hmm.
I know it's always a really difficult question because it's like such
Yeah.
a broad. It's such a broad question. It really is.
I've been like over the past like over 2022 I've been watching a lot more like shows and movies and stuff, and that's something like I've definitely been interested in. And again, that ties also into what I'm doing, because I'll see something in like a show and a movie, and then I'm like, oh, I want
Right.
to do something like that for my video, and then it's
Yeah,
like,
totally. Yeah.
yeah. And I guess same goes for music. I've been listening to a lot more music over the past year, and like getting into more people, and yeah.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else you want to mention? Anything that might actually sum it up?
Uh, Besides that, I guess like hanging out with like my friends and like playing games on Discord and stuff, and watching stupid videos.
Yeah.
And but that's really the gist of like the main stuff I do. But
Yeah, that's fair.
yeah.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for stopping by. I really
Yes,
appreciate
thank
your
you.
time. Make sure you all check out Spartan Dash over on your local. I almost said local browser.
Local
That's not right.
YouTube.
Your local YouTube, the singular. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.